I ran into my wife by accident while partying at a bar. She was hanging on to her first love's arm, while I had my little lover by my side. The irony, before we both went out, we had even exchanged our plans for the evening. She said she had to work overtime at the office. I said I had a business meeting to discuss a contract. In front of everyone, we pretended to be strangers, polite smiles, polite laughter. But when we got home that night, her face was full of fury as she grabbed me by the tie. The little lover tastes quite nice. Chapter 1. It was pure coincidence that I ran into Emily at the bar. I turned around immediately, ready to leave. Unfortunately, my idiot business partner wouldn't let me go. He grabbed me and practically dragged me to Emily. With a sycophantic grin plastered on his face, he introduced us. Miss Moo, this is my good friend, Mr. Mickey Ning from the Ning Group. Then he turned to me. Mr. Ning, this is Miss Emily Moo, the eldest daughter of the Moo Group. You'll surely have many business collaborations in the future. Tonight's on me. Let's all get to know each other. I couldn't care less about his barking. My gaze had already met Emily's. She was holding hands with Santiago, the second young master of the Song family, but her eyes were locked on Rebecca, the woman in my arms. For a split second, I saw her expression freeze, then she smiled, a sly, amused curve of her lips. Mr. Ning, long time no see. What's this? No clients to entertain tonight, so you finally have time to come play at a bar? She reached out to shake my hand, and when our palms met, I could clearly feel her digging her nails in. I simply chuckled, retaliating casually. Miss Moo, what a rare mood you're in, with such a large company to run. It's surprising you're not working overtime tonight. Truly a miracle. We stared at each other, the meaning in our eyes crystal clear. Then, as if by silent agreement, we both let go and returned to our own places. Most of the people here tonight were from our social circle, but our marriage, Emily's and mine, had never been made public. We had our reasons for keeping it that way back then, and so few people knew. As a result, even after 5 years of marriage, the world still thought we were both single, and there was no shortage of busybodies trying to play matchmaker. Mr. Ning, you probably don't know this. That man, Mr. Santiago Song, is Miss Moo's first love. She's been waiting for him for years. Ever since he went abroad, Miss Moo has stayed loyal, never even glancing at any other rich young man. She's waited all this time. Now that they've finally reunited, I'm sure it won't be long before they make it official. When that happens, we'll all have to drink to their happiness. My idiot partner kept rambling on endlessly. Santiago, hearing this, gave me a provocative look, then pulled Emily close and kissed her sweetly. A declaration of victory. I didn't bother to react. A faint, knowing smile tugged at the corner of my lips. People are ridiculous creatures. I used to think I'd never get over that relationship, that I'd be trapped in it forever. But now, I realize it was pointless. Punishing yourself for someone else's mistakes, childish. From now on, whoever that woman has beside her, men or otherwise, has nothing to do with me anymore. Chapter 2. Emily and I rarely appeared together at public events. A few years ago, we might still show up as friends, or something slightly more intimate than that. But lately, even that had stopped. Everyone assumed we weren't close, especially that brainless business partner of mine, who just couldn't keep his mouth shut. Mr. Ning is such a devoted man. He's been single for years and refuses to date anyone. I wonder which lady has stolen his heart. But it looks like he's finally opened up recently, found himself a lovely young girl. Maybe good news is on the way. Ha ha ha. Rebecca rolled her eyes at me with a teasing charm, making no move to get out of my arms. Instead, she looked around the group and said sweetly, Mickey said that once he's finished handling his personal affairs, we'll get engaged. No matter how long it takes, I'll wait for him. Even the loud music in the bar couldn't drown out the happiness glowing in her eyes. She was still just a young girl, yet there was an unmistakable sense of confidence and possessiveness in her words. I couldn't help but ruffle her hair fondly. My meeting with Rebecca had been pure coincidence. It was a year ago, in City A, when I went there for a business negotiation at her family's company, no less. She had just graduated then, merely an intern. That night, at the banquet, she suddenly stopped me in my tracks. At first, seeing a shy young girl, I smiled and asked what she wanted. Her eyes were shining as she looked up at me, almost pitifully, before finally speaking after a long pause. Mr. Ning, could we be friends? I was momentarily stunned. Rebecca and Emily were both stunningly beautiful women, but of completely different kinds. Emily was fiery, passionate, and uninhibited. Rebecca was fresh, youthful, and quietly alluring. Yet for one fleeting moment, Rebecca's expression overlapped with Emily's, as if I had been transported back 10 years in time. Mickey Ning, let's be friends. I still don't know why I agreed to that girl's request. Somehow, we just ended up becoming friends. Later, Rebecca told me, beaming with happiness, that when she first saw me, she felt as though I was her destined one. That was why she'd had the courage to approach me. She said she had fallen for me while watching me navigate business talks with her father and other partners so effortlessly. But I had no intention of deceiving her. I told her clearly that I was already married and didn't want to waste her time. She was devastated. 4 months. I didn't hear from her, until her father called me and recommended her for an internship at my company. When she came in, she said softly, "I know about your situation, but I think I should chase my own happiness. I'm still young. I'll wait for you. As long as you're single before I fall in love with someone else, I'll marry you." Back then, she couldn't even look me in the eye, like she was facing some dangerous beast. At that time, my relationship with Emily was already in shambles. The only thing keeping our marriage together was a piece of paper, a marriage certificate. The reason was simple. Emily had secretly gone abroad for a month-long vacation with Santiago. Once that old flame reignited, I knew exactly what it meant. If she claimed nothing happened between them, I wouldn't believe it even if I were beaten to death. I'd known about their love story long before. We grew up in the same social circle. The two of them had been close since childhood, and their romance later on was passionate and public. As for me, I had always loved Emily in silence, never once daring to confess. You could say that from the tender age of 14 or 15, when first love begins to stir, all the way through the restless passion of her 20s. It was Santiago who walked beside Emily through it all. They stayed together until after college. The breakup came when the Mu family's business ran into financial trouble and needed outside support. Naturally, they turned to the Song family, but the Songs weren't interested. Santiago's older half-brother had already taken control of the family company and refused to let even a fraction of the family's assets go to his younger half-sibling. The two families fell out over the matter, and that tension soon spilled into Emily and Santiago's relationship. Arguments became constant. Frustrated by the family politics and feeling misunderstood by his girlfriend, Santiago left the country in anger. In the end, it was my family, out of respect for our parents' long-standing friendship, who stepped in to help the Mus. Emily and I became acquainted at one of the collaboration banquets that followed. Honestly, looking back now, it's almost laughable. I always believed she had been heartbroken, that she had finally given up on Santiago and turned to me out of gratitude. Only later did I realize she had gotten close to me simply to spite Santiago, and I just happened to be the most convenient choice. Everything that followed unfolded like a perfectly written script. She was lonely and needed comfort. Her family wanted to strengthen the business alliance through marriage, and I, the fool who thought we were in love, became the perfect sacrificial pawn. Of course, I was the only real victim in that story. Back then, I was utterly blind, my eyes filled with nothing but her, convinced that my 10 years of unspoken love had finally paid off. Thinking about it now, I can only smile bitterly. What a fool I was. Chapter 3. Emily Mu narrowed her eyes, a half-smile playing on her lips. Anyone who knew her well could tell, this was her not pleased face. She twirled the wine glass between her fingers, her tone casual yet cutting. "Well, Mr. Ning, you really are a devoted man, aren't you, at your age? Still playing innocent love games with little girls, or maybe you've got one at home and another outside." I gave her a sarcastic smile, glancing at her lazily. No matter where she went, Emily always drew every eye in the room. Her looks were striking, her figure flawless, no less than any professional model. And those eyes, they always seemed to glimmer with a dangerous kind of warmth. Even close to 30, she had shed the freshness of youth and replaced it with the allure of a mature woman, rich, intoxicating, and impossible to ignore. That night she wore black stockings and a fitted cocktail dress that made everyone around her swallow hard. Taking the glass of wine from Rebecca's hand, I sipped it lightly before replying in an even tone. "Right back at you, Miss Mu. I'm surprised at how loyal you still are for love. Must be that first love still packs quite the punch." Our words weren't polite in the least, every sentence barbed, every smile edged with mockery. The air between us thickened for a moment. The others at the table didn't quite understand why the usually mild-mannered me and the famously warm-hearted Emily couldn't seem to stand each other. But just as quickly as it had risen, the tension faded. The rest of the party was dull, the alcohol bitter. Emily clung to Santiago, flaunting their affection, exuding the nauseating scent of love. Everyone around cheered them on. Ah yes, true love. Emily even threw me a provocative smile. Once upon a time, that would have made me furious, maybe even flip the table. But now, I kept my face calm and raised my glass. "So sweet, come on, give us another kiss, let's record it for memories." My words made Emily's face stiffen, her smile freezing midair. Everyone else thought she was just being shy and immediately turned the teasing toward me and Rebecca. "Mr. Ning, how about you two? A kiss for the memory?" Rebecca's face turned crimson instantly. Her family's status matched anyone else's at the table, but she'd been raised strictly. Her mother was a university professor. Very proper, she hadn't even been allowed to date casually. I was her first love, honestly. I'd been puzzled for a while. How could her parents possibly agree to let their precious daughter date an older, divorced man like me? Rebecca glanced at me several times, shy and flustered. That unmistakable glow of someone in love, Emily wouldn't miss it. Her hand holding the glass trembled slightly, proof enough of her barely contained anger. But I had no intention of embarrassing Rebecca. She was my girl, and she deserved to be protected, not made a spectacle of. I wasn't about to stoop to Emily's level, someone who had no sense of boundaries. Just as I was about to politely decline, Rebecca leaned closer. Her eyes were filled with affection, steady and determined as she looked up at me. I knew exactly what she meant. She wanted me to make it official, to declare our relationship publicly, right here in front of our circle. Didn't expect that from her. My little girl had grown up. Mickey, she whispered, I've wanted this kiss for so long. What a little enchantress. For a moment, I nearly lost control. Her face was flushed, part alcohol, part shyness, her youthful charm mixed with womanly allure in a way that was dangerously tempting. Then, just as our lips met, the table flipped over. Emily stood there, face pale and furious, staring daggers straight at me. Everyone froze, stunned, unsure what had just happened. After all, her official boyfriend was standing right beside her. Instinctively, I moved to shield Rebecca. I knew what Emily was capable of when she lost her temper, but Rebecca didn't flinch. Her delicate, pale fingers pressed against the back of my head, pulling me closer, boldly finishing the kiss that had only just begun. Chapter 4. As soon as I returned to the villa and turned on the lights, I saw Emily standing there with a stormy expression, glaring daggers at me. Ever since that kiss with Rebecca, she had been sulking, making the entire party feel suffocatingly tense. Too tired to bother with her, I changed my clothes and got ready to wash up. It was late, but Emily blocked my way, her face blank as she spoke coldly. Good deal you made tonight. Is the bar your new place for business meetings now? I shrugged, unimpressed. Right back at you. Weren't you the one working overtime at the bar too? She had a slim cigarette between her fingers, something she rarely touched. That alone said she needed the nicotine to calm herself down. Mickey, look at you now, walking around flaunting your little lover like you're some kind of big shot. Her tone made me frown. My reply was cold. Emily, you're no different, showing off other men in public. Don't forget, you're the one who said we'd live our own lives and divorce when the time comes. What? Are you regretting it now? Or is it that only you get to play around? Emily sneered and crushed out her cigarette. Regret? You wish. I'll never regret it in this lifetime. I'm just warning you, that young girl fresh out of school will kick you to the curb once she's had her fun. You'll end up with nothing, no love, no money. I didn't even look at her. Walking past, I shot back lazily. At least she's clean when she's with me, not cheating on me behind my back. I slammed the bathroom door shut and turned on the shower, wanting to wash off the stench of smoke and alcohol. Halfway through, the door burst open. Emily's hot body pressed against mine. I tried to push her away, but she clung tighter. She whispered in my ear, her voice dripping with seduction. Mickey, that little girl can't possibly know how to please you. Let me take care of you tonight. I pried her hands off and grabbed her by the throat. Emily didn't seem to mind the roughness. Her eyes burned with lust, and her smile was full of arrogance. I knew what she was thinking. She thought I was still that same old simp who once adored her. Thought I was just jealous. With one forceful shove, I threw her out of the bathroom. Emily hit the floor, staring at me in disbelief. Mickey, are you crazy? I'm your wife. I wrapped a towel around myself and looked at her coldly. Not for long. Get out. Her face darkened, fury written all over it. Our relationship was already strained, so she didn't dare explode. We're not divorced yet, and you're already disgusted by me. I glanced at her. The lace nightgown she wore looked familiar, but definitely not from home. Then it hit me. I'd seen it before, in the photos Santiago sent me. Back when Emily went on a vacation with Santiago, I had been overworking myself and fell sick. It wasn't serious, just needed a few days of rest in bed. Back then, Emily was wearing that same nightgown, lying in bed with Santiago, their bodies covered in marks of pleasure. They even posed for the camera, flashing peace signs, and sent the picture straight to me. I didn't say a word. Her excuse for going abroad was a business trip, and I had actually been worried about her. But from that moment on, all I felt toward her was disgust, the kind that made me want to erase her completely from my life. And now she had the nerve to wear that same nightgown in front of me. She was asking for it. You're wearing the wrong outfit for the wrong man. Get out. Emily froze, staring at me for a long time. Her lips trembled, fists clenched tightly. She probably remembered too. Without another word, she finally turned and walked out. I stood under the shower, but the warm water couldn't wash away the cold inside me. Now, I couldn't even stand her touching me. Whenever she did, I'd immediately go shower, afraid of catching something from her. It was 2 years ago when I first realized Emily still couldn't forget Santiago. Back then, our marriage seemed fine. Emily was elegant, capable, the perfect wife both at home and in public. In bed, she was passionate, making me believe she actually loved me. She used to come home right after work, And on holidays or anniversaries, she'd cook for me herself. We looked like a model couple. Until one night, she got drunk, her mind hazy and unfocused. And then she murmured, "Santiago, say you love me." I admit, that night jealousy tore me apart. The girl I'd loved for years, my wife, still couldn't let go of that so-called first love. After that, I started secretly searching our house for anything related to Santiago. The more I searched, the more terrified I became. There was nothing in our home, but in the small apartment Emily had bought before marriage, everything was there. She had hidden it perfectly. There was even another phone, with only one contact. That was when we had our first big fight after marriage. My demand was simple: forget Santiago. I tried pleading, threatening, shouting. Her answer never changed. "I can't forget him. If you can't handle it, divorce me." That's when I finally understood. For all these years, Santiago had always lived in her heart. After that, we stopped mentioning it. I knew a few years of marriage couldn't erase over a decade of her feelings for him. At least she hadn't done anything outrageous, so I tried to be gentle, to warm her heart, to make her forget him. She never truly responded to me, just carried on as usual, but the crack between us never healed. Until the day she lied about a business trip and flew overseas, while I spent that night alone, staring at the moon. I still remember, the moon outside the hospital window was so full, so bright, and its light, so cold, cold enough to freeze my heart. That was the night I drew the line between who I used to be and who I became after. Emily no longer existed in my world. Emily's grandfather never liked Santiago, partly because the Song family had once refused to help them, but also because Santiago's mother had a disgraceful past, climbing her way up through shameful means. Her parents didn't care, but in the powerful Mu family, their opinions didn't matter. The old man's word was law. When Emily returned to the country, I filed for divorce, but it failed. Grandfather Mu was gravely ill, and the doctors gave him at most 2 years with conservative treatment. Emily didn't want to upset him, so she made a deal with me. We'd wait until after his passing to finalize the divorce. As compensation, for wholly owned subsidiaries of the Mu Group were transferred to me free of charge. I accepted, but not for the money. The Ning family never lacked wealth. It was my way of showing gratitude to Grandfather Mu for his care, and for making possible the dream I once held as a young man. Since then, Emily and I have never touched each other again. We lived our own separate lives. Chapter 5. For the next month, Emily Mu didn't come home once. We only went out together again on the day of Grandfather Mu's birthday banquet. "Don't slip up in front of Grandpa," Emily warned coldly as she drove, "and keep your little sweetheart in check. If anything goes wrong, I won't let her off easy." We were riding in the same car today to make it look like our marriage was still intact. I shrugged, still looking out the window at the passing scenery. "Worry about yourself first." Her face darkened, and she didn't bother speaking to me again. Grandfather Mu lived in the old family estate on the outskirts of the city, a quiet, peaceful place. But halfway there, Emily's phone rang, a very specific ringtone. I didn't need to ask who it was. Without hesitation, she picked up. I kept my gaze fixed on the window, expression blank. We hadn't really spoken on the phone for almost a year, unless it was about the elders. We were practically strangers now. I didn't hear what was said on the other end, but Emily suddenly slammed the brakes and pulled the car over with a sharp drift. The impact nearly threw me against the door, and anger surged in my chest. "What the hell are you doing?" She knew it wasn't the time, but she still spoke up. "I have something urgent to handle. You go on ahead to the banquet." I laughed bitterly. "Emily, are you out of your mind? It's Grandfather's birthday. What could possibly be more important than him?" She stayed silent for about a minute before replying impatiently. "It's Santiago. Something happened. I have to go. Cover for me at the party." This woman was insane. I pushed the door open, stepped out, and spat out one sentence before leaving. "Emily, you'll be the death of Grandpa." She didn't respond. The sports car roared away, speeding back toward the city. I pulled out my phone and called for a rideshare. It was only a family banquet, but being late would be disrespectful, especially with Grandpa's fragile health. This might very well be his last birthday. Grandfather Mu had always treated me well. Even after marriage, he kept a room for me at the old house, not one shared with Emily, but a separate one, something he'd arranged even before we got married. When he found out Emily had gone abroad with Santiago, he had punished her severely, 10 lashes, despite his frail body, and made her kneel in the ancestral hall for an entire day. "Mickey's love for you is something everyone knows," he had scolded, "and this is how you repay him. As long as I live, that Santiago will never be part of the Mu family." Grandpa's plan was simple: punish Emily harshly, make her come to her senses, then use his old face to beg me not to divorce her. But Emily had made up her mind. She accepted the punishment, but never admitted fault. I sighed. Emily might have no conscience, but I still had mine. On the way to the estate, my phone rang. It was a friend. When I answered, there was silence on the other end. After I pressed him several times, He finally spoke hesitantly. Mickey. I just saw Emily with Santiago at the hospital, the obstetrics department. I pulled some strings, you might want to see this. A moment later, a few photos came through. In them, Santiago was gently supporting Emily, his eyes full of affection. There was also a pregnancy report, 4 weeks pregnant. Patient name, Emily. I smiled faintly and saved the photos. My heart had died long ago. This was just proof now. If she refused to divorce me, I couldn't spend the rest of my life with a woman this filthy. But as raindrops began to fall against the car window, I suddenly remembered the first time I ever protected Emily. It was back in high school, and it was raining that day too. On the way home from school, I saw Emily being taken away by a group of local thugs. Back then she strutted like a proud peacock. With her family background she offended people easily. Those thugs had been hired to teach her a lesson. Proud as she was, Emily couldn't stand it, regardless of whether she was outmatched. She charged at them and started fighting. But she was just a girl. No match for those guys who'd been brawling for years. She was soon knocked to the ground. By the time I arrived, Emily was already losing blood and close to fainting. Seeing those men about to do who knows what, I couldn't just stand there. I kicked the ringleader away. I'd trained in Sanda for a few years, so I could move well enough. Still, 2 fists couldn't beat 4 hands. To protect Emily I took several blows, and when I was knocked down, I pulled her tight against me. Before I passed out, I weakly comforted her. Don't be afraid, I'll always protect you. What happened after that? I don't really remember. I woke up in the hospital. When I finally wanted to tell Emily how I felt, I found out she was already with Santiago. I silently dropped the roses I'd brought, my heart aching as I turned away. When I was sick from overwork, I longed for her to protect me once, or at least to take care of me once. I called her, and she said she was going abroad on business and asked me to hire a caregiver. When I received that photo that night, all I could do was smile bitterly. What business trip? There was none. Santiago had wanted to go on vacation and had nobody to go with. Emily was only too eager to provide the company. That night I didn't cry. People say men who cry are pretentious, but the pain was indescribable, tearing me apart. One night of Emily's pleasure rekindled what should have been dead, and in one sleepless night I killed the love-struck part of myself. Chapter 6. When I arrived at the Mu family estate, the atmosphere felt strange. I was the only one who had come, and I'd taken a rideshare, which made everything feel even more awkward. But no one spoke about it, as if nothing had happened. When Grandpa Mu saw Emily was not by my side, his expression darkened. After the banquet ended, he called me into his study. Mickey, I'm sorry for the trouble. My eyes stung. Once robust, Grandpa Mu was now skin and bone, as if a gust of wind could topple him. His face was waxen, drained of color. Grandpa, what are you saying? I'm fine. You look stronger than before. He coughed a few times. I could see fresh streaks of blood in the phlegm. Then he forced a weak smile. No good. I don't think I'll make it to the new year. I didn't dare follow that line of conversation and instead picked at lighter topics. But soon there was nothing left to say. I looked at Grandpa Mu's tired face, offered a small smile, and prepared to take my leave. Grandpa, rest now. I'll come see you again in a couple of days. Just as I was about to leave, he stopped me. Mickey, you should divorce Emily. I froze. I hadn't expected Grandpa to broach the subject. Seeing my silence, he continued on his own. She's been cozying up to that worthless song boy again, hasn't she? You've suffered for it. I forced a smile. Grandpa, that's not true. This time he looked me square in the eye. These things aren't secrets. And your smile, it's fake. You may fool others, but you can't fool me. Don't forget, I watched you grow up. I fell silent, weighing the options. At the very least, I couldn't let Grandpa's condition worsen because of this. Mickey, actually Emily not coming today is because the old man made up his mind. Originally he wanted to beg you not to divorce today. That song kid, even if the old man used all his strength, he could erase that boy from your lives. Sigh. I don't know what spell Emily's been put under. She even dared to skip my birthday banquet. Given that, I have to think of your future. Divorce, live your own life. I wanted to speak, but my throat tightened and no words came out. He still looked at me kindly, then opened his safe and took out a bag. Inside are 10% of the Mu Group's shares. Emily has truly wronged you these years. Consider this compensation. I refused, but he pressed it into my hand. You must accept. Our Mu family owes your Ning family. Don't let yourself suffer. Chapter 7. That night I didn't go home. I went straight to Rebecca's place instead. I'd had a lot to drink and just wanted someone to talk to. She looked happy when she saw me, but the moment she hugged me her expression changed. You're sick, you've got a fever. Only then did it hit me. I really was sick. Rebecca guided me to the bed and handed me some medicine. Rest for a bit. Then she slipped under the blanket and held me tightly. I knew she wanted to comfort me, but I still pushed her away. Don't, you'll catch it. Instead she leaned in and placed a light kiss on my lips. I'm not afraid. I just want to be with you. She kept patting me softly, like lulling a child to sleep, which made me both laugh and ache inside. The moonlight tonight was gentle, not cold at all. Rebecca's body was warm and soft, holding me tightly, not letting go. She was 6 years younger than me, yet here she was, taking care of me. It struck the softest part of my heart. As I drifted off to sleep, she whispered softly in my ear, "Mickey, marry me soon. I love you so much." Chapter 8. Early the next morning, I decided to go home. It was time to put certain things in motion. To my surprise, Emily was actually there. The moment she saw me, her brows knitted together. "Where were you last night? Why didn't you answer your phone?" I'd been too sick and dizzy last night to even look at my phone. When I finally pulled it out, I saw a missed call, made around dawn. I let out a cold laugh. "How considerate. My business has nothing to do with you." Emily's eyes dimmed, and after a moment of hesitation, she did something rare. She tried to explain. "Yesterday Santiago wasn't feeling well. You know his health isn't good." I cut her off impatiently. "Save it. I'm not interested." When I first found out she was still tangled up with Santiago, I'd wanted to put a tracker on her, terrified she'd go somewhere I didn't know. Now, the less I saw of her, the better. "We're getting a divorce. I'm done living like this." I handed her the divorce papers, drafted overnight by the company's legal department. "Grandpa already knows about you and Santiago. He's the one who told me to file for divorce. He gave me 10% of Mu Group's shares, so I won't be taking those 4 subsidiaries you promised." Emily froze. She wasn't shocked that Grandpa knew about Santiago. That kind of thing couldn't stay hidden. What surprised her was my attitude. "Mickey, we agreed to wait until after Grandpa passes before divorcing. What's wrong? Can't wait to bring your lover home." She gave a mocking laugh, leaning back on the sofa, watching me as if waiting for me to take it back. "You think that woman's any better? What you two have is just passion. She wants your money, you want her body, that's all. In a few years, you'll end up the same way. You still can't see that, can you?" I looked at her coldly. The woman I'd once been overjoyed to marry now made me sick. Even her excuses for cheating sounded self-righteous. "Emily, have some shame. Just because you've lost yours doesn't mean the rest of us have. At least she's not the kind of woman who grovels after being thrown away." My words cut deep. Emily couldn't respond. She knew exactly how shameless her actions had been, dressing them up as some kind of pure love just to justify herself. Her face had gone pale, but I kept talking, showing her no mercy. "Don't think doing disgusting things under the name of true love makes them noble. The difference between humans and animals is the ability to control their desires." Emily finally snapped. She shot to her feet, glaring at me in anger. "Mickey, how can you be so cruel? How can you use such ugly words to insult my love?" I laughed bitterly. "Cruel? Ugly? Not as ugly as what you two did. I've said all I need to say. Just sign the papers. Once this is over, you'll never have to see me again, or hear another cruel word from me." Her eyes were like shards of ice as she stared at me. After a long silence, she smiled, a smile I couldn't read. "Fine, I'll sign. Don't regret it." I handed her the pen. "Regret? Whoever gave this woman that kind of confidence must have been a fool. Even if I died, I wouldn't want to be buried next to her. Too filthy." With a dark expression, she signed her name quickly, then threw the papers hard against my chest. "Happy now?" I nodded. "Perfect. Once the cooling off period ends, I'll contact you." Chapter 9. I couldn't wait to share my happiness with Rebecca. To my surprise, the little girl was even more excited than I was. She bought a countdown calendar and tore off 1 page each day. "Mickey, tomorrow's the last day." I even snuck out my household registration book. "Let's just get the marriage certificate right away." Looking at her beaming smile, I couldn't help but laugh and shake my head. After some persuasion, and a phone call between both sets of parents to finalize things, she finally gave up her wild idea of rushing to get married tomorrow. But that day, one of my buddies was getting married, and since we were all in the same circle, not showing up would have been rude. Unfortunately, our circle wasn't very big, so Emily and I ended up sitting at the same table. I ignored them completely. She didn't even glance at me, just kept picking food for Santiago. "Santiago, you've been working hard lately. Eat more." Then she glanced sideways at me, the corner of her eye full of provocation. Santiago's face darkened. "Emily, this isn't even what I like." The others looked between them for a moment before laughing awkwardly to ease the tension. "Emily, when are you and Santiago planning to tie the knot? You two have been together for so many years, you should really have a big wedding." Emily stayed silent, head down, lost in thought. Santiago, on the other hand, couldn't hide his smug grin. He glanced at me with obvious provocation. "Of course, when the time comes, everyone must come celebrate with us." One of our friends chuckled. "Funny thing, back in high school, when Mickey risked everything to save Emily, we all thought they'd end up together. Who would have guessed it'd be you two instead? Guess that's true love, huh?" Santiago's expression soured instantly. He tried to change the subject, but Emily suddenly froze. her face changing drastically. She shot up from her seat and rushed toward me, knocking over a glass in the process. The noise turned every head in the room. What? Mickey saved me. Santiago quickly grabbed her hand. Emily, not now. We'll talk about it later. Before he could finish, she shook him off violently. Mickey, tell me the truth. What really happened? I didn't understand why she was reacting like this, but it wasn't the right place to make a scene. So I briefly described what had happened that day. And what did you say to me in the end? She pressed. I thought for a moment before answering honestly, the words I'd never forgotten, because I'd meant them from the bottom of my heart. Don't be afraid. I'll always protect you. Emily collapsed back into her seat, burying her face in her hands. Santiago had gone pale as a sheet. Everyone could tell something was off now. Not everyone knew I had saved Emily, but it wouldn't take much asking around. Back then, my foolish devotion to her, that simp reputation, wasn't exactly a secret. Why? Why did my parents tell me it was Santiago who saved me? Emily's voice trembled as she muttered again and again, looking half-crazed. I couldn't answer her, truthfully. I was just as confused. One of our friends finally stepped in, realizing the commotion was drawing too much attention and ruining the wedding atmosphere. Emily, stop it. Today's someone else's big day. I've heard a bit about what happened back then. Just go home and ask your grandfather. He knows everything. Chapter 10. The scandal between Emily and Santiago spread far and wide. Even if I didn't care anymore, the news kept finding its way to me. It turned out that when the incident happened back then, Santiago had also been there. He liked Emily too, but didn't have the courage to step in. After I was taken to the hospital, Emily's parents found Santiago and crafted a story for him. The reason was simple, except for Grandpa Mu. The Mu family had never wanted to cooperate with the Ning family. They saw us as upstarts who couldn't bring enough benefit to them. So the highly favored second young master of the Song family became Emily's supposed savior. Their years together were the result of deliberate matchmaking by her parents under that false story. One of my friends relayed their downfall to me with barely concealed glee. Now Emily's basically in control of the entire Mu family. She's using all her power to take revenge on Santiago, took back the houses and cars, teamed up with Santiago's older brother. The guy can't even scrape together $1,000 now. I just shook my head. It didn't matter. The truth of that day was complicated. I had saved Emily, yet been mistaken for someone else, and under the name of repaying a debt, been hurt again and again. Do I hate her? Of course, but not once have I regretted saving her that day. It's just that, if time could rewind, I think I wouldn't have risked everything to do it again. That night I stayed at the villa I'd once shared with Emily, not because I wanted to, but because she had called me over and over, and I got tired of the ringing. When I walked in, Emily was already drunk. Empty bottles littered the floor. I frowned but didn't bother with her, just gave a reminder. Emily, tomorrow at 9, Civil Affairs Bureau. Don't be late. She looked at me with a desolate expression. Instead of answering, she said something else entirely. I've mobilized all my resources to go after the Song family. Everyone involved back then will be dealt with. Santiago's finished, he'll be left with nothing. And those in the Mu family who took part, they won't get away unscathed either. Are you happy now? Our tragedy was their doing. 10 years. 10 years they wove this lie and destroyed everything I had. I laughed coldly. Stop lying to yourself. Deep down, you never loved me. Who saved you never mattered. Emily's laugh was bitter and broken. She dropped to her knees and started slapping herself, over and over. Full force. Soon blood trickled from the corner of her mouth. I grabbed her wrists, stopping the self-inflicted blows. Have you lost your mind? She looked up at me, eyes filled with pleading. Mickey, I was wrong. Please forgive me. Hit me. Curse me. Just don't leave me. I still have 20% of the Mu Group's shares. Take them, please. I stared at the pitiful sight of Emily without a word. The truth was, the events of that day were only a trigger. Maybe without the misunderstandings, I really would have ended up with Emily. But who says saving someone means they have to give you their life in return? Even if there had been no Santiago, wouldn't there eventually have been another man? None of this mattered anymore. If you really want to thank me, then get a divorce. Emily crawled forward 2 steps and clung to me tightly. No, I won't divorce. Give me another chance. Everything before was my fault. I promise I won't make the same mistakes. I'll love you with all my heart, please. I sighed. Time to play the ace. I opened my phone and handed her the medical report. You and Santiago already had a child. Do you think I'm some sucker who'll take on your baggage? Tears poured down Emily's face. She hadn't expected I'd find out. Don't worry. I already terminated the pregnancy, the same day we signed the divorce papers. That day I regretted it and secretly had it removed without telling Santiago. There's nothing between us anymore. I always liked you. I only stayed because of the debt of gratitude to him I felt I owed him. And that's why I went the wrong way. I looked at her, unable to tolerate it any longer, and slapped her hard across the face. Emily, don't insult me anymore. If you still care about the family's ties, if you remember that I once saved you, Then show up at the Civil Affairs Bureau tomorrow. With that, I turned and left the house that could no longer be called a home. Chapter 11. The next day Emily stood me up, which didn't surprise me. She called me countless times, and the core message was always the same: as long as we don't get a divorce, ask me for anything. She made me so angry I could have strangled her. Emily, she didn't cherish me when she had me, and now that she'd lost me she wouldn't let go. I was about to pursue my own happiness, and she was still causing trouble. If you're unwilling to divorce, well, I have my ways. After clearing it with my parents, Ning Group's funds began to strike at Mu Group in the capital markets. With the shares Grandpa Mu had given me, it took less than half a month for Emily to be unseated from her CEO position. She called me, her voice full of disbelief. "Mickey, do you really hate me that much? Is there not even a bit of feeling left?" she asked. I said coldly, "Go to the Civil Affairs office, I'll return everything to you." There was silence on the other end of the line. After a long while she spoke again. "Mickey, you're owed this. As long as you're happy, I won't divorce. I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you." I stared at my phone in helplessness. This woman really was hard to deal with. With Grandpa Mu still alive, I couldn't very well pursue a divorce lawsuit that would disgrace the Mu family. While I was fretting over this, Emily called again. This time her voice was panicked. "Mickey, please help me. Grandpa's failing." When I arrived, Grandpa Mu had been revived and regained consciousness. He looked terrible, as if his end was near. Seeing Grandpa Mu like that made me feel guilty. I wasn't sure whether his sudden illness had been triggered by my using Ning Group to force Emily into divorce. I had handled that matter poorly. Grandpa Mu did not blame me. He beckoned us to the bedside. "Grandpa." Emily was crying so hard she could barely speak. She knelt at the bedside and held Grandpa's hand tightly. Grandpa always knew this day would come. "Don't be sad," he said weakly, though he was still trying to summon strength. "Emily, I heard you refused to divorce," he continued. Emily wiped her tears, her face full of sorrow. "Grandpa, only now do I know that my parents and the Song family tricked me. You know I always remember the person who saved me. I've lost everything now. I really can't be without Mickey." Grandpa sighed. "Mickey treats you well. He never wanted to hurt you. Even with how badly you made a scene, he was still waiting for you. I hinted about that matter to you, but you wouldn't listen and believed Santiago instead. Now you regret it, but it's too late." He coughed violently a few times, rested for a long moment, then continued. "I only have 2 wishes now. I hope you will promise me." Emily and I both nodded. At a time like this we had to let Grandpa go in peace. "Emily, divorce Mickey. Your fate as his wife is over. You've exhausted it." Then he looked at me with effort. "Mickey, I spoiled Emily. I don't dare ask for much, but please, protect her one more time. Just once. Okay?" We both froze. I had thought Grandpa's dying wish would be for them not to divorce. If that had been the case, I really would have been in a bind. Emily slumped to the floor in utter defeat. "All right, I'll agree to the divorce," she said. I also gripped Grandpa Mu's hand tightly. "Grandpa, don't worry. We're not meant to be husband and wife anymore, but I won't let her suffer. I'll protect her." Hearing our answers, Grandpa closed his eyes. His expression was a strange mixture of remorse and contentment. Chapter 12. By the time everything was settled, a week had already passed. We agreed to meet at the Civil Affairs Bureau. She looked thinner, frail even. It was obvious she hadn't rested in days. "Mickey, there's really no chance for us anymore, is there?" Before we went inside, she looked at me pleadingly. "You loved me so much once, tolerated all my mistakes. I truly know I was wrong now. Can't we start over? You can take revenge on me however you want. Hit me, yell at me. I deserve it. Just please, don't leave me. Please?" Her tone was humble, her expression full of pain. I didn't look at her. My eyes stayed fixed on the drifting clouds above. "Emily, you're really pitiful. You know that. Even now, you still don't understand whether what you love is me, or Santiago, or that imaginary savior someone made you believe in. To be honest, even if Santiago hadn't lied to you, can you say with certainty that you wouldn't have fallen for him anyway? Your feelings for him weren't just gratitude, you know that." Seeing that she wanted to explain, I smiled faintly and waved my hand. "Actually, I think this is for the best. You let me go, and we both go our separate ways to pursue our own happiness. Isn't that good? Time will make you forget all of this, Anne. I promised Grandpa I'd protect you, so let's both keep a little dignity, shall we?" "Emily, I've truly let go. Please, you should too." Her eyes reddened, but she still forced a painful smile. "All right, I agree to the divorce. I'll let you go." At the end, she took out a document and handed it to me. "This is a donation agreement. Sign it, and I'll go through with the paperwork. These are all my assets. If you won't let me spend the rest of my life making up for my mistakes, then let this money make up for them instead." I skimmed through it, utterly shocked. It included 20% of Mu Group's shares, plus all the houses and cars under her name. You have to know, we had signed a prenuptial agreement, so there was practically no issue of shared assets. I stared at her blankly, then signed it anyway. I didn't care about the money, but I knew she wouldn't finalize the divorce unless I did. She truly regretted everything, but it was far too late to turn back. As for what she'd do afterward, without her fortune, her life would no doubt become extremely difficult. I had promised Grandpa Moo that I'd protect her. Later, I'd set up a trust fund with those assets, at least to ensure she'd never have to worry about food or shelter. When we walked out of the Civil Affairs Bureau, we exchanged a faint smile, but neither of us spoke. From that day on, our paths diverged. As I got into my car, she opened her mouth a few times, but no words came out. Goodbye, my youthful love. May our worlds never cross again.